Think about this for a moment. Could the very act of pouring your heart into making a positive impact today inadvertently set the stage for long-term problems?
It's a really tough question, isn't it?
Yeah. We're kicking off this deep dive by grappling with something really crucial. How do we engage in mission in a way that truly lasts rather than, creating unintended dependency?
It's such a vital point and one that, well, it really deserves careful consideration. Today, for you, we're diving into how to cultivate mission that goes beyond just temporary fixes
Right.
and genuinely empowers communities to thrive independently. We'll be examining why some well-intentioned efforts fall short, and, more importantly, how to build a foundation for sustainable change.
Exactly. Because what we want you to take away from this deep dive is a clear understanding of how to shift from offering, temporary solutions
Right.
to equipping local believers for long-term self-sufficiency. It's about moving beyond a top-down approach and embracing genuine partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. The global church is evolving, and, well, our strategies just have to adapt to avoid that trap of creating dependence.
Totally.
And to achieve that, we'll be exploring some really practical pathways. We'll look at frameworks for transitioning leadership to local hands,
Okay.
delve into the principles of asset-based development, focusing on a community's strengths rather than just its needs, and examine models for self-sustaining church planting.
So it's really about learning how to do mission with communities, not just to them.
That's the core of it, yes.
Okay, let's get into this with a powerful image you mentioned, the seed and the soil. What does this tell us about the essence of sustainable mission?
What's fascinating about this metaphor is how succinctly it captures a fundamental principle. Think of the seed as representing the inherent strengths, the wisdom, the very aspirations that already exist within a community.
Right, already there.
Already there. And the soil, that's the environment, the context, where those qualities can either flourish or, well, wither.
So it's less about us arriving with some kind of ready-made answer and more about nurturing the potential that's already present.
Right, precisely. Sustainable mission, really at its heart, is about deeply respecting local cultures, honoring their traditions, and empowering people to become self-sustaining stewards of their own progress. You can't simply, transplant a foreign idea into a community and expect it to thrive without understanding and working with the existing landscape.
And we have a compelling story here that really illustrates this about an irrigation system in the Andes and an old man named Tiberio. What happened there?
Old Man Tiberia's experience is, well, it's a poignant reminder of how even really well-meaning aid can unintentionally weaken a community's resilience, their ability to cope and adapt.
How so?
Well, they received this new irrigation system intended to improve their lives, naturally. But when it inevitably broke down, which things do, the community hadn't developed the skills or the resources to repair it themselves. Because they had become reliant on this external solution, its failure led to disappointment and, frankly, a step backward.
Wow. So the core lesson is that we need to completely rethink our approach to mission. It's not just about providing resources, is it?
Not at all. If we connect this back to our opening question, it's about moving away from what can become a cycle of giving that unintentionally fosters dependency.
Right, that cycle.
Yeah, and instead prioritizing the cultivation of empowerment. It's about enabling communities to become, as the source beautifully puts it, the architects of their own destiny.
That requires a significant shift in perspective, though.
It really does. This paradigm shift asks us to reevaluate what it truly means to serve. It's about moving beyond those, transactional exchanges we provide, they receive, to engaging in collaborative processes that genuinely respect and elevate local agency.
So when we look at the bigger picture, what are the wider implications of this concept of sustainable mission in, different parts of the world?
The fundamental challenge, it seems, remains consistent across diverse global contexts. How do we foster an environment where the local community's inherent capabilities are not only acknowledged but actively strengthened?
Okay.
While the specific answers will vary greatly depending on the context, of course, the underlying principle of empowerment is universal.
And the source gives us some very concrete strategies for how to make this happen, moving beyond just, good intentions.
Exactly. We see three key empowerment-oriented strategies highlighted: building capacity, integrating culturally, and making decisions collaboratively.
Okay, let's unpack capacity building first. What does that look like in practical terms?
Capacity building involves actively investing in the skills and knowledge within the community.
Right.
This could mean training local leaders, providing education in areas like resource management, financial literacy, maybe technical skills, anything that equips people to become more self-reliant in the long term.
That makes sense. And how does cultural integration contribute to sustainable mission?
Cultural integration is really about a deep respect for local customs and values. It means designing interventions that actually fit within the existing social fabric, ensuring that development feels natural and isn't perceived as something just imposed from the outside. When initiatives resonate with the local culture, they are far more likely to be embraced and sustained by the community itself.
And the third strategy is collaborative decision-making. Why is that so vital?
What's crucial here is involving community members as equal partners in every single stage of the process.
Equal partners.
Equal partners. From the initial planning right through to the implementation of projects, this fosters a powerful sense of ownership and accountability.
Yeah, I could see that.
When people feel they have a real voice in what happens, they are far more invested in the long-term success and are more likely to contribute their unique insights and perspectives.
So it's about much more than simply showing up and implementing our own ideas. It's about truly understanding the local context and, well, working together.
Precisely. And to lay the groundwork for this kind of lasting change, the source outlines a roadmap of action, emphasizing the critical importance of thoroughly assessing the soil, the local context.
Right, the soil metaphor again.
Exactly, before we even consider planting any seeds of intervention.
And that involves some really fundamental steps, doesn't it? Like truly listening to the community.
Deep listening is absolutely paramount. It means engaging in dialogues that go far beyond just superficial assessments. It's about truly understanding the historical context, the underlying fears, the genuine aspirations of the community. Just as old man Tiberio's caution was shaped by his past experiences.
Yeah.
The voices and perspectives of local people must be central to guiding any planning process.
And it's not about rigidly adhering to a preset plan either, is it?
No, definitely not. Adaptive strategies are essential. We need to develop flexible programs that can evolve and adjust based on community feedback and changing circumstances.
Makes sense.
One-size-fits-all solutions often stifle local innovation and the ability to respond effectively to real-world conditions.
And what about the actual resources or technologies that might be introduced? How do we ensure they have a lasting impact?
Sustainable resource management is the goal there. It's about equipping communities with the knowledge and the tools to maintain and repair any new technologies or systems that are introduced.
Okay.
The aim is to create a resilient infrastructure that remains functional and beneficial long after the initial external involvement maybe fades away.
So the role of external partners undergoes a significant transformation in this model then.
Absolutely. They transition from being the primary providers to becoming facilitators of sustainable development.
Facilitators.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. Their role is to offer their expertise, maybe share resources, but most importantly, to empower local communities to take ownership of their own progress. This demands a great deal of humility, a deep sense of mutual respect, and a genuine willingness to learn from those who possess a lifetime of experience within their own context.
It sounds like the true measure of success isn't just about what we bring to the table, but what the community is able to achieve on its own afterward.
That's the crux of it. Exactly. The true measure of success lies in the enduring capacity of a community to thrive independently. It's about valuing that seed within the soil, the inherent potential, over the temporary satisfaction of simply providing external aid. Ultimately, sustainable mission is a journey of co-creation.
Co-creation, I like that.
Yeah, where faith, resilience, and empowerment are planted in fertile ground, nurtured by a deep respect for local wisdom, and cultivated through genuine collaboration.
Okay, so we've explored the seed and the soil. Now let's delve into the idea of the enduring seed and the absolutely critical role that Indigenous leadership plays in making sustainable mission a reality.
What's truly insightful here is the recognition that while external support can provide an initial spark, maybe, genuine, long-lasting growth truly flourishes when it's deeply rooted in local leadership. Historically, mission work, despite its good intentions, sometimes overlooked or undervalued the vital cultural and spiritual foundations already present within communities.
It's like we were saying earlier with the seed in unfamiliar soil, right? It needs constant external tending just to survive.
Exactly. And the crucial lesson we've learned, or are learning, is that sustainable mission really takes hold and thrives when that seed is allowed to take root in its native soil. nourished and guided by indigenous leaders who possess a deep understanding of their own land, their history, their spiritual heritage.
And this isn't just a practical consideration. The source emphasizes that there's a profound theological imperative at play here as well.
That's right. At its heart, sustainable mission isn't merely a strategic choice. It's a theological necessity.
A necessity.
Yes. The gospel, in order to be truly transformative, must be inherently contextual. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but a living truth that needs to be expressed in the language, culture, and lived experiences of each specific community.
Right.
Indigenous leadership is absolutely key to this because they are uniquely positioned to translate and tailor the message in ways that deeply resonate with local realities.
So empowering local believers isn't about stepping back and doing nothing then?
Precisely. It's not an abandonment of support, but rather a fulfillment of what the source calls the divine blueprint for the church. A community of believers empowered from within to lead and minister effectively.
And Indigenous leadership is really the catalyst that makes that happen.
Absolutely. They are the catalyst that transforms that initial spark of faith into a robust and resilient flame, deeply rooted in the local landscape. This leadership isn't about simply replicating external models. It's about harnessing the unique wisdom, traditions, and innovative spirit of local people. They bring a crucial perspective that bridges the timeless truths of the gospel with the contemporary challenges their communities face.
So how do we practically go about empowering this vital Indigenous leadership? What are some tangible steps we can take?
Well, the journey towards sustainable mission through empowering Indigenous leadership is both deeply meaningful and practically achievable. The source highlights 4 key pathways. The first is the practice of deep listening and learning.
We touched on the importance of listening earlier, but how does it specifically relate to empowering leaders?
Here, it's about shifting our posture to truly listen to the local community, not just as recipients of aid or instruction, but as genuine partners in the mission.
Partners, okay.
This involves immersing ourselves in their cultural, social, and spiritual life to gain a profound understanding of their unique narratives, their values, their deepest aspirations. It's about valuing their insights and perspectives right from the outset, recognizing them as the experts in their own context.
And the second pathway focuses on education and training, but specifically tailored to the local context. That sounds key.
Exactly. True empowerment comes through education and training that is directly relevant to the local realities. Programs should be designed to equip Indigenous leaders with the specific skills they need to effectively manage resources, engage in community planning, and navigate the unique challenges they face, drawing upon both external knowledge and their own inherent wisdom and innovative capacities.
The third pathway involves how leadership itself is structured, moving towards shared and collaborative models.
Yes. True sustainability emerges when leadership isn't concentrated solely in the hands of external partners, but is progressively shared. External partners can intentionally transition from being the primary decision makers to becoming supportive allies, offering technical assistance, resources, mentorship, while deeply respecting the autonomy and leadership of local individuals. This collaborative model fosters mutual respect, builds trust, and ensures that initiatives are both relevant and resilient in the long run.
And the final pathway emphasizes the importance of valuing and integrating the local culture.
This is absolutely crucial. Any mission strategy that aims for sustainability must actively honor and integrate the rich tapestry of local culture. By affirming Indigenous traditions, languages, and wisdom, external agents not only validate the community's inherent identity, but also create fertile ground for the gospel to flourish organically within their own unique cultural expressions.
So when we truly prioritize and empower Indigenous leadership, what's the ultimate vision for the future of mission?
The narrative shifts, doesn't it? From one of dependence to one of profound hope and lasting transformation. When sustainable mission is genuinely nurtured through the leadership of local individuals, the community ceases to be just a passive recipient of aid, and instead becomes a vibrant, self-sustaining organism, deeply rooted in its own soil. This approach not only respects the historical and theological foundations of mission, but also provides a practical and effective pathway to achieve enduring change. Ultimately, it's about building trust, fostering empowerment, and holding a deep belief in the inherent divine potential that resides within every community.
Now, we need to address a really critical aspect of mission work, something that can subtly undermine even the most sincere efforts, the shadow of dependency.
This is a vital point to confront, absolutely. The source describes this shadow as the often unintended consequence, where relying too heavily on external support can actually dim the very light of the gospel we hope to share.
Dim the light. That's a powerful image.
It is. While mission endeavors often begin with a genuine desire to assist, over time, a reliance on that assistance can unfortunately take root.
And the source talks about the seeds of dependency. What exactly are those?
These are the often well-intentioned offers of immediate relief, whether it's in the form of financial aid, leadership provision, or maybe theological guidance. That, over time, can unintentionally foster a long-term reliance on external sources. While these interventions might address urgent needs in the short term, they can inadvertently hinder the development of local capacity and self-reliance.
And this dependency can manifest in various ways, right? It's not just about financial support.
Precisely. The source highlights three key areas where dependency can take hold: financial dependency, leadership dependency, and even theological dependency.
Oh, okay, let's start with financial dependency. What are the potential risks associated with that?
What's particularly concerning about financial dependency is that when communities become overly reliant on external funding, they risk becoming, well, beholden to the shifting priorities or even the specific agendas of donors.
Right, donor agendas.
Yeah. While those resources might appear transformative in the immediate context, they often lack the inherent stability and long-term sustainability that comes from cultivating local economic empowerment. Over time, this can significantly undermine a community's ability to generate and manage its own resources, leaving it exceptionally vulnerable when that external financial support eventually diminishes or disappears altogether.
And then there's the reliance on outside leadership. What are the drawbacks there?
Leadership dependency is equally problematic. Crucial decisions, strategic direction, even day-to-day operations are primarily driven by external actors. The unique voice, insights, and cultural understanding of the local community can be inadvertently overshadowed. As we've discussed, nurturing indigenous leadership from within is absolutely crucial for effectively contextualizing the gospel and ensuring it resonates deeply with the local culture and the specific challenges people face. Without it, the mission risks becoming perceived as a foreign imposition, a standardized model that doesn't truly connect with the hearts and minds of the people it seeks to serve.
And the idea of theological dependency is quite nuanced. How does that typically play out?
Theological dependency occurs when local interpretations of faith become predominantly shaped by, say, Western theological perspectives, rather than emerging organically from the community's own cultural and historical context.
Right. Imposed rather than grown.
Exactly. This imposition of an external theological framework can create a significant disconnect between the lived experiences of local believers and the core message of the gospel. Faith, which is ideally a dynamic and deeply personal journey, can inadvertently become a reflection of foreign ideologies, which can, in turn, dilute its transformative power and relevance within the local context.
So, when a community becomes dependent in these various ways, what are the broader risks? What's the potentially fragile foundation that's being built?
The source points to several significant risks. One is the stifling of organic growth.
Stifled growth. How?
Well, when the focus is primarily on external aid and solutions, local believers may not develop the necessary skills, the confidence, the leadership capabilities to nurture their own spiritual and communal development.
Okay.
The dependency model, by often providing ready-made answers, can inadvertently deny communities the vital opportunity to explore their own inherent potential and creativity in addressing their needs.
And it can leave communities feeling disempowered and vulnerable, too.
Absolutely. Dependency inherently breeds disempowerment. When communities become accustomed to relying on an external crutch, let's say, they can lose the resilience and resourcefulness that naturally arise from self-sufficiency. If that external support is suddenly withdrawn, it can lead to a rapid collapse of structures and initiatives that were never truly built to stand on their own, leaving behind a fragile and ultimately unsustainable situation.
And perhaps the most concerning risk is how it can distort the very message of the gospel itself.
That's a profoundly important point. Perhaps the most significant risk is that the gospel message can become distorted. When faith becomes intertwined with the promise or expectation of external material aid, it risks being perceived as something contingent upon foreign intervention rather than a genuine transformation of hearts and lives. The core message of the gospel, intended to ignite interchange and foster a personal and communal relationship with the divine, can become entangled with expectations of material support and external validation, potentially obscuring its true power and meaning.
So how do we actively work to overcome this shadow of dependency and move towards a more sustainable future in mission? What's the path forward?
The key lies in a fundamental shift in our approach, moving decisively away from short-term relief efforts toward strategies that foster long-term empowerment.
Okay, long-term empowerment.
Yes, the source emphasizes the critical importance of investing in local capacity, diligently cultivating indigenous leadership, as we discussed earlier, and actively encouraging self-reliance, so that communities can develop the internal strength and resilience to thrive, even when external support is no longer readily available.
And that involves implementing some very specific strategies, I imagine.
Yes, the source highlights 3 key strategies for actively overcoming dependency. The first is a focused and sustained investment in local capacity.
Okay.
This means intentionally creating educational and training programs that are deeply rooted in the local context and directly address the community's specific needs and opportunities. By equipping individuals with the practical skills, knowledge, and confidence to manage their own resources, lead their own initiatives, and make informed decisions, we empower communities to build a robust foundation for their long-term future.
The second strategy is all about intentionally nurturing and supporting those local leaders we talked about earlier.
Exactly. True empowerment flourishes when local leaders are not only recognized, but actively nurtured, mentored, and increasingly entrusted with significant levels of responsibility.
Right. Trusting them.
Yes. Facilitators and mentors from external agencies should intentionally work alongside these emerging leaders, gradually transitioning their own role from primary decision makers to supportive partners and advisors. This collaborative model deeply honors the unique cultural context of the community and ensures that leadership is both authentic and sustainable.
And the third crucial strategy focuses on ensuring that the gospel message truly resonates within the local context.
Contextualizing the gospel is absolutely essential. It requires that theological teachings are presented and understood in a way that deeply resonates with the existing cultural and historical realities of the community.
Makes sense.
By allowing local voices to shape their own understanding and expression of faith, the mission becomes a truly transformative journey that is both deeply personal and universally relevant. Ultimately, overcoming dependency requires embracing a new paradigm, one that moves beyond simply providing aid to actively fostering genuine and lasting empowerment from within.
Now, the source takes a look back at the historical narrative of Western missions. It points to a complicated truth and how dependency has often, perhaps unintentionally, become part of the story.
This historical reflection is absolutely crucial for us to truly understand the roots of the challenges we face in mission today. It really is.
Yeah.
While Western missions have undoubtedly brought about significant positive changes and advancements in many areas, the source rightly points to a complicated truth. That a pattern of dependency has often unintentionally undermined the very communities they initially set out to uplift and assist.
And at the heart of this, there was a particular ingrained way of viewing the world, wasn't there? A sort of bias.
Yes, the source identifies a deeply ingrained worldview, a dichotomy of we and they that often, perhaps unconsciously, assumed a sense of Western superiority, whether it was in spiritual understanding, intellectual capacity, technological advancement, or cultural norms. This underlying assumption, however well-intentioned, had profound and often negative consequences for how mission work was approached and implemented.
And this particular worldview led to some specific negative outcomes in the field of mission, didn't it?
Absolutely. One of the most significant and far-reaching effects was the gradual erosion of local agency.
Erosion of agency.
Yeah.
How?
Well, when communities were consistently presented with externally developed solutions and resources, the natural motivation and opportunity to cultivate their own indigenous leadership and build their own capacity for self-sufficiency gradually diminished.
Okay.
Over time, local institutions could become overly reliant on foreign expertise, stifling the natural development of indigenous systems of governance, education, healthcare, even spiritual leadership.
And it also had an impact on how people within those communities saw themselves and their own cultures, you mentioned.
Dependency also significantly impacted self-identity within these communities. Indigenous cultures, rich with their own unique traditions, languages, wisdom, were often reinterpreted and sometimes devalued through a Western lens. The message of the gospel, intended to be liberating and empowering, was at times inadvertently intertwined with colonial ideologies that diminished the local narrative and sense of self-worth. This not only undermined the authenticity and relevance of the faith within that context, but also created long-lasting social and cultural divisions.
And this reliance on external support created some significant vulnerabilities in the long run, too.
Precisely. The dependency model, while sometimes providing short-term relief or benefits, ultimately laid the groundwork for significant structural vulnerabilities.
Right.
When external support systems were suddenly reduced or withdrawn, the communities and institutions that had become reliant on them often faced considerable challenges and even collapse because they hadn't developed the internal capacity and resilience to sustain themselves independently.
So, really learning from this history is absolutely vital for moving forward in a more effective way. What are some practical steps we can take based on these important historical lessons?
The source outlines 4 practical steps for forging a more resilient and empowering future based on these crucial historical insights. The first is a dedicated focus on cultivating local leadership.
Okay.
Through robust mentorship and training programs that empower Indigenous leaders to effectively guide their communities according to their own unique needs, cultural understanding, and inherent wisdom.
The second step is about fundamentally changing how we engage in mission partnerships. That seems key.
Yes, it's about fostering truly collaborative partnerships. This requires a conscious and intentional transition away from that outdated top-down approach to one that genuinely values and respects equal partnership. External agents should see their role as facilitators and supportive allies, rather than the primary drivers or controllers of change.
And the third step emphasizes the importance of making the gospel truly relevant within its local context again.
Contextualizing the gospel is absolutely key. This involves actively encouraging theological education and interpretation that deeply resonates with the local cultural narratives, the historical experiences, and the specific worldview of the community, ensuring that the message of faith is both profoundly transformative and authentically experienced within their unique context.
And finally, the fourth step is about building systems that are designed to last.
Absolutely. The fourth crucial step is prioritizing long-term sustainability over short-term solutions by actively developing local institutions and support systems that have the inherent capacity to thrive independently of ongoing external financial or operational support.
Right.
This historical reckoning serves as a powerful and necessary reminder of the critical balance that must be struck between providing initial aid and fostering genuine and lasting empowerment, ultimately aiming for a transformative future where every seed of faith can truly flourish in its own right.
Now, let's delve more specifically into the potential risks and hidden costs associated with dependency on external aid that's often driven by Western missions. What are those nuances?
What's absolutely essential to understand are the far-reaching and often subtle impacts of this kind of dependency. These hidden costs can significantly erode local agency, unintentionally skew local priorities, lead to the gradual loss of cultural identity, create long-term financial instability, and even hinder the organic development of spiritual maturity within a community.
Let's start by looking at how this kind of dependency can affect local agency and initiative. You mentioned erosion earlier.
When a community becomes accustomed to consistently receiving external support to address its needs, it can inadvertently suppress the natural drive for local innovation, problem-solving, and self-reliance.
Right. It becomes the default.
It becomes the default. If solutions and resources are perpetually provided from the outside, the intrinsic motivation to develop their own capacities and craft their own answers to challenges can gradually diminish. The source provides a stark, real-world reflection of a village where virtually every aspect of life, from clean water to the school, is funded and managed by external donors. While there are certainly immediate benefits, the long-term consequence is that the community gradually loses its ability and even its perceived responsibility to address its own challenges independently.
Yeah.
This isn't just a logistical issue. It profoundly stifles local creativity, hinders the development of Indigenous leadership, and erodes that crucial spirit of self-determination.
And it can also significantly influence what gets prioritized within a community, can it?
Absolutely. Donor-driven priorities can often unintentionally sideline the authentic and deeply felt needs of the local community.
Like what?
Well, the source offers a compelling example where a well-meaning external donor might prioritize building an impressive, state-of-the-art community center over investing in more fundamental needs, like improving local agricultural practices or supporting traditional craft industries, sectors that might actually hold the key to long-term sustainable local economic development.
Right, the things that actually build resilience.
Exactly. Because the community often desperately needs the financial assistance being offered, they might feel compelled to align with the donor's vision, even if it doesn't truly address their most pressing or long-term needs.
We also touched on the importance of culture earlier. How can dependency impact a community's cultural identity specifically?
This is a particularly sensitive and profound risk. The gradual erosion of indigenous cultural identity can occur when Western models of church organization, educational systems, community life are implicitly or explicitly promoted or even imposed as a condition of receiving aid. Local traditions, languages, practices can be inadvertently devalued or even lost as a consequence.
That's concerning.
It is. This isn't necessarily a deliberate act of cultural erasure, but it's a direct result of a paradigm that sometimes, even unconsciously, places external norms and values above indigenous wisdom and ways of life. The source wisely references historical lessons, like mission schools prioritizing Western curricula over local knowledge, or medical missions sometimes discouraging traditional healing practices deeply embedded in the local culture.
And relying on external funding for ongoing operations can create its own set of vulnerabilities, as you mentioned.
Yes, it can lead to significant financial instability and long-term vulnerability. Communities become heavily reliant on external funding sources, which can often be unpredictable, subject to shifts in donor priorities or economic downturns in supporting countries. The source rightly points out that the sudden reduction or complete withdrawal of this external support can dismantle vital services and initiatives that were never designed or resourced to operate independently.
Right, like pulling the rug out.
Exactly. Consider a local ministry that expands rapidly due to generous donor contributions. If that funding unexpectedly diminishes, the ministry might find itself without a sustainable financial plan and struggle to maintain even core programs, potentially leading to collapse.
And finally, dependency can have a really profound impact on the spiritual growth and maturity of a local church or faith community. Tell us about that.
Beyond the very real material risks, there's a crucial spiritual dimension to the dangers of dependency. When leadership, teaching, even basic operational support are continually provided by individuals and resources from outside the community, local churches can unfortunately experience a form of spiritual infantilization. They might remain in a state of perpetual dependence, rarely developing the full maturity, self-governance, and internal leadership necessary to effectively shepherd their own congregations.
Right.
And engage with the unique spiritual challenges and opportunities within their own cultural context. This not only weakens the local church's sense of identity and ownership, but also significantly limits its ability to adapt, innovate, and truly thrive. True spiritual leadership grows organically from lived experience and deep connection to the community it serves.
So how do we actively work towards building a more equitable future and mission that effectively avoids these significant pitfalls of dependency? What are the strategies?
Addressing these multifaceted risks requires a fundamental and intentional shift in our entire approach, a decisive move away from inadvertently fostering dependency towards actively prioritizing genuine empowerment.
Okay.
The ultimate goal isn't necessarily to reject all external aid, especially in crises, but rather to strategically reimagine its role as a catalyst for long-term self-sufficiency.
A catalyst, not a crutch.
Exactly, not a perpetual crutch. The source thoughtfully provides 5 practical strategies. First, invest in local capacity, prioritize local leadership and problem solving. Second, align projects with genuine local needs, driven by local assessments, not donor agendas. Third, preserve cultural heritage, encourage initiatives that honor indigenous traditions. Fourth, build financial resilience, focus on sustainable economic models and local resource management. And fifth, foster spiritual maturity, support mentorship for indigenous spiritual leadership and self-governing churches.
So it really comes down to empowerment replacing dependency.
That's the goal, recognizing the inherent strengths and potential within every community and walking alongside them as they become the true architects of their own flourishing.
Now let's shift our focus to a specific and compelling vision for mission, building vibrant and sustainable faith communities from within through the principles of sustainable church planting.
This is truly a transformative vision in the landscape of global mission. Sustainable church planting champions the inherent power of local communities to become fully self-governing, financially self-supporting, and organically self-propagating.
Self-governing, self-supporting, self-propagating.
Exactly. It's about nurturing a deeply rooted and resilient faith that authentically blossoms from within the unique cultural heartbeat of its people, rather than perpetually relying on external resources and ongoing assistance.
And the source lays out some core foundational principles that underpin this vision of sustainability, right?
Absolutely. At the very heart of sustainable church planting are those three interconnected and vital principles you just mentioned: self-governance, self-support, and self-propagation.
Let's delve into each of those. What does self-governance look like in the context of a local church? How does that work?
Self-governance signifies that the local church actively listens to and values the voices of its own members, empowering them to make decisions collectively within the specific context of their own experiences, their cultural traditions, and the guiding wisdom of the Spirit.
Okay.
It transforms leadership from a top-down model to a shared journey, a dynamic interplay between biblical truths and indigenous wisdom. It's ultimately about empowering the local congregation to take full ownership of its own direction.
And self-support encompasses more than just the financial aspects of a church, doesn't it? It's broader than that.
It certainly is. While financial independence is crucial for long-term health, self-support extends beyond just meeting expenses. It becomes a tangible expression of biblical stewardship,
Right.
where the very act of giving and receiving becomes an integral part of the church's ongoing life and witness. It empowers the congregation to actively invest in their own future and the work of the gospel within their community without constant external reliance.
And finally, self-propagation that sounds like a natural and organic outcome of a truly healthy and vibrant church community.
Exactly. A truly sustainable church naturally and organically reproduces. As it grows strong in its faith, deepens its connection to the local community, and effectively ministers to the needs around it. The message of the gospel begins to spread outwards in a way that is authentic, culturally relevant, and deeply resonant with the people in that specific context. It's about the church becoming a self-sustaining source of new life, new faith, and new hope.
So what are some of the strategic pathways to actively move towards this empowering model of sustainable church planting? How do we get there?
Well, the journey towards sustainability begins with the intentional and ongoing process of equipping local believers through targeted training and consistent mentorship.
Okay, equipping.
Yes, external partners can play a vital supportive role, particularly initially, by providing resources, guidance, mentorship, but the ultimate goal is always to facilitate a smooth transition to complete local independence. This involves teaching core principles of biblical leadership, sound financial stewardship, culturally relevant evangelism, all carefully tailored to the specific context. Think of it as strategically investing in local leaders who will eventually carry the mission forward entirely on their own.
And it's not solely about formal training programs, is it? It's also about actively fostering a deep sense of ownership and responsibility within the entire congregation.
Absolutely. Sustainable church planting demands a fundamental shift in mindset, one that actively cultivates a strong culture of ownership and participation. Local believers need to move beyond simply being recipients of ministry and begin to see themselves as the active architects of their own spiritual journey and the primary agents of transformation within their own community. It's about transitioning from a passive posture to an empowered stance where every member feels responsible and empowered to contribute.
The source provides a compelling example of a small rural church that started with just a few dedicated believers. How did they successfully evolve into a self-sustaining and multiplying entity?
This real-world example beautifully illustrates the power of these principles. With dedicated mentorship, they initiated leadership training that blended biblical truths with their own local traditions.
Okay.
They then courageously launched various community outreach projects conceived, funded, and managed by the congregation members themselves.
Locally driven.
Entirely locally driven.
Yeah.
As these initiatives flourished, the church organically evolved into a fully self-supporting entity that eventually even gained the capacity to begin planting new churches in neighboring areas. It's a powerful demonstration of how intentionally building from within can transform individuals, strengthen communities, and expand the gospel sustainably.
And this approach to church planting has much broader implications for how we understand and engage in global mission as a whole, doesn't it?
It certainly does. The core principles, self-governance, self-support, self-propagation, powerfully challenge traditional global mission strategies to critically rethink the balance between external aid and local empowerment.
Yeah, that balance is key.
It is. By prioritizing these elements, mission efforts can evolve into authentic, mutually respectful partnerships that honor diverse cultures while effectively spreading the gospel. The enduring legacy is a global tapestry of vibrant churches, each deeply rooted in its own local soil, becoming a sustainable wellspring of hope and transformation.
Now let's discuss the crucial need to move beyond handouts in mission work and focus on strategies that foster genuine and lasting economic self-sufficiency within communities.
This is an absolutely vital aspect of cultivating long-term community health and well-being. While immediate needs sometimes necessitate direct assistance, true sustainable progress requires us to thoughtfully move beyond simply providing handouts,
Right.
and instead focus on building inherent economic resilience from within the community itself.
What are some of the potential downsides or unintended consequences of primarily relying on handouts in mission contexts? We've touched on dependency, but specifically with handouts.
What's particularly concerning about the over-reliance on handouts is that they can unfortunately and unintentionally create cycles of dependency. We keep coming back to that word.
Yeah, central.
When communities become accustomed to consistently receiving aid without being actively empowered to generate their own resources and opportunities, it can actually hinder genuine economic transformation and leave them vulnerable long-term. Every step forward might become contingent on external assistance.
So what's the overarching vision for achieving economic self-sufficiency in this context? And what are some of the core principles that underpin this vision?
The vision for economic self-sufficiency is built upon several foundational principles. First, empowerment through ownership, enabling individuals and communities to identify, cultivate, and use their own talents and resources.
Okay.
Second, recognizing the inherent dignity in work supporting income-generating projects not only provides financial stability, but also restores purpose and dignity. And third, cultivating a culture of stewardship, promoting shared responsibility in managing resources, often rooted in biblical principles. Ultimately, this represents a fundamental paradigm shift, moving away from aid as a temporary fix, and strategically using it as a catalyst for lasting change by unlocking untapped local potential.
What are some of the practical strategies that mission organizations and local churches can implement to foster this kind of lasting economic self-sufficiency?
The source highlights several key strategies. One is actively supporting income-generating projects owned and managed by the community, ensuring profits are reinvested locally.
Okay.
Another is investing in vocational training and skills development programs that equip individuals with marketable skills for employment or entrepreneurship.
That makes sense.
And a third is diligently promoting financial literacy and responsible stewardship through education and transparent practices, fostering a culture of financial responsibility.
The source provides a real-world illustration of a microloan program as a successful strategy. How does such a program typically work, and what kind of impact can it have?
A microloan program is a fantastic illustration of moving beyond handouts. Instead of direct financial assistance, these programs offer small, often low-interest loans to local entrepreneurs with promising business ideas but lacking initial capital.
Okay.
As these small businesses succeed and generate income, the entrepreneurs repay the loans, and that capital is then recycled to support new ventures within the community.
So it's self-sustaining.
Exactly. Local churches can often play a vital role as hubs for financial literacy workshops, providing mentorship, reinforcing a sustainable cycle of economic empowerment. This addresses immediate needs, but also instills ownership, accountability, and community pride.
So when a community is able to achieve a greater degree of economic self-sufficiency, what are the broader implications for the sustainability and overall impact of mission work?
It fundamentally transforms the dynamics. Instead of the traditional donor-recipient relationship, it fosters true partnership built on mutual respect and shared responsibility.
Partnership again.
Yes. External partners intentionally shift their role from primary benefactors to facilitators, providing targeted training, resources, initial support, but ultimately stepping back to allow local communities to lead their own economic development.
Right.
This increased economic self-sufficiency also strengthens local cultural identity and ensures development honors local traditions. It's a more holistic approach, building both material and spiritual wealth, moving mission beyond handouts to creating genuine, lasting resilience.
We've talked extensively about the foundational importance of Indigenous leadership. Let's now delve deeper into what it truly means for that leadership to not just exist, but to really flourish within a community.
The flourishing of Indigenous leadership is truly a beacon of hope and profound transformation in global mission. It represents a fundamental shift in emphasis, moving away from external entities doing for communities, towards empowering local individuals to equip their own people, moving from telling to attentively listening, and moving from externally controlling the agenda to genuinely collaborating as partners.
And the source speaks about the process of uncovering the roots of this vital leadership. What does that process typically involve?
The process of uncovering the roots begins with actively identifying and affirming the existing gifts, talents, and strengths inherent within every culture.
Starting with assets.
Exactly, whether it's practical skills, existing organizing structures, wisdom traditions, spiritual insights, these are the seeds. This is followed by strategic investment in relevant, culturally sensitive training and mentorship.
Okay.
These aren't just one-way info transfers, but interactive dialogues, connecting traditions with contemporary challenges, nurturing those seeds into capable, flourishing leaders.
And the source also beautifully speaks of the branches of empowerment that grow from these roots. What are some of the practical ways this empowerment manifests in real-world impact?
The empowerment becomes tangible in several key ways. One is empowering local leaders in decision-making, gradually transferring authority so they develop genuine ownership.
Right.
Another is actively celebrating local culture, encouraging indigenous expressions of faith through their own music, art, storytelling, worship, strengthening identity, and making the gospel more resonant. Finally, it involves fostering accountability through collaboration, establishing shared commitments to transparency, responsible stewardship, ensuring leadership remains connected and accountable to the people they serve.
So when we witness Indigenous leadership truly flourishing in a community, what is the broader and more lasting impact that we can expect to see?
The impact is truly significant. It represents a fundamental shift from dependency to inherent resilience. By empowering local leaders to drive change from within, communities break free from limiting cycles of external reliance and generate their own sustainable solutions, rooted in their wisdom and context. This also fosters a truly sustainable model for mission, prioritizing authentic relational partnerships over transactional aid.
Right.
External partners evolve into facilitators, mentors, allies, providing resources and guidance to catalyze the potential already embedded within the community, leading to mission impact that is enduring and authentically rooted.
Now, let's turn our attention to defining sustainable church planting, not just as an event, but as a thriving and interconnected, holistic ecosystem. What does that comprehensive view entail?
This perspective really reframes our understanding. It's not just planting a seed and hoping it grows in isolation,
Right.
but envisioning and cultivating a thriving, interwoven network of elements, nurturing spiritual formation, holistic community development, and sustainable economic empowerment. It's a dynamic model where the church aims not just to survive, but to flourish in every aspect, becoming a vibrant, self-sustaining organism.
And what are the key elements and principles that make up this holistic ecosystem of sustainable church planting?
The source highlights several crucial components. First, a strong biblical foundation anchoring the church in Scripture. Second, genuine local ownership, empowering the community from within to lead and decide, ensuring relevance through contextualized leadership.
Okay.
Third, financial self-sufficiency, building an economy of generosity through local giving and sustainable income-generating activities. Fourth, active community engagement, working to transform the neighborhood by addressing multifaceted needs through partnerships and service. Fifth, deep commitment to discipleship and leadership development, equipping members for ministry and extending the mission by raising new leaders. And finally, seamless integration of all these elements.
Integration is key.
Yes, creating a dynamic, self-renewing entity where each component supports the others, fostering a church that is spiritually vibrant, deeply rooted, economically stable, and actively engaged.
So it's a very interconnected and dynamic way of looking at the church, where all the different parts are working together synergistically.
Absolutely. Envision a church like a well-tended garden, where every member is nurtured and nurtures others. Every initiative is an opportunity for growth, and collaboration transforms challenges into stepping stones.
Yeah.
It's about thoughtful planning, committed local leadership, and genuine partnership between the church and its community, allowing this ecosystem to take deep root, flourish, and build a lasting legacy.
We've discussed moving beyond simply giving financial handouts. Now, let's delve into the critical convergence of spiritual transformation and intentional economic empowerment, focusing on the concept of providing hand-ups rather than just handouts.
This is where we see the beautiful and essential interconnectedness of spiritual growth and tangible economic well-being.
Mm.
We need to move beyond temporary financial assistance and instead address the deeper systemic issues that create vulnerability and can hinder individuals from fully engaging spiritually. Economic empowerment in this context isn't just charity. It's seen as an integral aspect of discipleship.
Discipleship. Interesting.
Yes, freeing people from the constant weight of material insecurity so they can more fully pursue their relationship with God and contribute meaningfully.
What are some of the key strategies that can lead to this lasting economic self-sufficiency, moving beyond just providing for immediate needs? What are these hand-ups?
The source outlines 5 key strategies. First, microfinance initiatives empowering local entrepreneurs with small loans. Second, vocational training and skill development, equipping people with marketable skills.
Okay.
Third, fair trade partnerships, ensuring fair compensation for producers. Fourth, supporting sustainable agricultural development for food security and income. And fifth, forming community-based savings groups, cultivating investment and financial responsibility.
The source provides compelling stories of impact for each of these strategies. Could you perhaps share a brief example of how one of these has made a real difference in a community? Like the microfinance one?
Certainly. Consider that microfinance initiative again. A woman gets a small loan, buys sewing equipment, starts a tailoring business from home.
Right.
She provides needed clothing, generates sustainable income for her family, improves their situation, and maybe even creates opportunities for others to learn skills or buy affordable clothes. It's a powerful example of how a small hand-up can create a ripple effect of positive change and long-term empowerment.
So this intentional shift from simply providing handouts to offering strategic hand-ups really represents a new and more empowering vision for mission work.
Absolutely. It's a vision that recognizes the inherent dignity and potential within every individual and community. By equipping people with tools, skills, opportunities, we foster stronger, more resilient spiritual communities where individuals are not just surviving, but truly thriving and able to fully engage in their faith and contribute. It's about building lasting transformation, addressing both spiritual and material needs, honoring potential and fostering true independence.
Now let's address a critical shift in the philosophy of mission work, moving away from a historical narrative of paternalism and embracing a more equitable and effective model of genuine partnership.
This represents a truly radical and necessary reevaluation of the fundamental relationship dynamics within mission work. Historically, the narrative has often been paternalistic.
Right, the we know best attitude.
Exactly, where foreign entities arrived with perceived authority to help and guide. This top-down approach, often well-intentioned, frequently created power imbalances and fostered dependency. Sustainable mission demands a fundamental shift towards genuine partnership, where all parties are empowered to lead, learn from one another, and grow together in mutual respect and shared purpose.
What are some of the inherent flaws and negative consequences that arise from this more paternalistic approach to mission?
Paternalism often stems from an unconscious assumption of superiority, spiritual, cultural, technical. This flawed foundation can lead to imposing external ideals irrelevant or unsustainable locally.
Yeah.
It often creates dependency by overlooking local capabilities. It can result in ineffective leadership, disconnected from real needs, and it hinders local innovation and adaptation. Ultimately, paternalism can undermine the core gospel message of empowerment.
So what are some of the key principles that should guide us as we strive to move towards this more collaborative and partnership-based model of mission?
The source highlights several foundational principles. First, actively listening and learning, truly recognizing and valuing the wealth of wisdom within local communities.
Okay.
Second, fostering shared leadership and genuine local ownership, empowering indigenous leaders. Third, embracing co-creation and mutual learning, acknowledging both parties bring valuable knowledge. Fourth, intentionally relinquishing control, trusting local leaders. And fifth, committing to addressing root issues together, working collaboratively for lasting change.
The source provides some really insightful stories of impact that illustrate these principles in action. Could you share one that particularly highlights the importance of truly listening to and learning from the local community?
Absolutely. There's that compelling story from India about a foreign missionary who initially struggled. It wasn't until they made a conscious effort to truly listen to and learn from local church leaders, understand their perspectives, cultural nuances, their vision, that the work began to flourish. By adjusting their approach to align with local customs and dynamics, the ministry became far more sustainable, rooted, and effective. It beautifully illustrates the power of humility and valuing local wisdom.
This fundamental shift towards partnership sounds like it requires a complete reimagining of how we approach mission work, moving beyond just tweaking things.
It truly does. It requires a conscious move away from leading from the front with foreign expertise, and instead embracing a posture of walking alongside.
Walking alongside.
Yes, co-laboring as equals, developing sustainable solutions born from within the community. This necessitates a mindset shift from control to being humble companions and lifelong learners.
Right.
Key principles include listening first, co-designing solutions, empowering local leaders, sharing resources without control, celebrating successes together, and establishing mutual accountability. Embracing this potential of walking alongside leads to a deeper, more authentic, more impactful gospel expression within the local culture.
Finally, let's discuss the crucial topic of assessing sustainability in mission projects. How can we develop a clear framework to determine if our efforts are likely to have long-term impact? Because that's the goal, right?
This is absolutely fundamental. Sustainability isn't just a nice to have, it's the bedrock of effective, lasting mission work. Without it, we risk creating that very dependency we've been discussing.
Right.
The source provides a comprehensive, practical framework for assessing sustainability across 6 key areas, using a simple scoring system to help evaluate the potential for genuine long-term impact and self-reliance.
What are those 6 key areas that we should be carefully evaluating?
The framework focuses on 6 critical dimensions. First, community ownership. Does the community feel responsible and invested? Second, local leadership. Are capable leaders empowered to guide the work forward? Third, financial viability. Is there a realistic plan for long-term self-sufficiency?
Right.
Fourth, cultural relevance. Is the project adapted to the local context? Fifth, environmental impact. Is it environmentally responsible? And sixth, spiritual depth. Does it foster genuine spiritual growth and discipleship? Each area can be scored, giving a comprehensive evaluation.
Community ownership seems like a foundational element. What are some key indicators that a project has strong community ownership?
Key indicators include active participation of local leaders from the start, genuine community input in shaping goals, and local committees taking responsibility for oversight. The source gives that great example of a community well project, where residents were involved in deciding location and maintenance, fostering much greater ownership.
And how can we effectively assess the strength and capacity of local leadership within a project?
We look for evidence of intentional leadership development training programs, equipping locals with skills to manage independently. We also assess if local leaders have genuine authority and support. And if there are clear pathways for mentoring future leaders. A church plant where the missionary intentionally mentors local pastors to take over all aspects is a strong example.
Financial viability is often a significant hurdle. What are some indicators of a sustainable financial model?
We need to see a well-defined plan for generating local support, encouraging regular giving in a church, or developing income-generating activities contributing to long-term needs.
Right.
A church teaching stewardship principles or a project including a microloan program creating revenue are positive indicators.
Cultural relevance ensures that the mission truly connects with the community. How can we gauge that aspect?
We assess if the project aligns with local customs, values, structures. We look for use of local languages, traditions, communication styles, and ensure it addresses expressed needs, not imposed solutions. A healthcare initiative integrating traditional healing practices alongside modern medicine is a good example.
And we certainly can't overlook the environmental impact of our projects, especially today.
Absolutely. We need to consider if the project promotes sustainable resource use, minimizes negative environmental consequences, and ideally incorporates eco-friendly practices. An agricultural project teaching sustainable irrigation and organic farming shows this commitment.
Finally, how do we assess the often less tangible but critically important aspect of spiritual depth and impact?
We look for evidence of intentional spiritual formation and discipleship integrated into the project. We assess if local leaders are equipped to nurture spiritual growth, and if there's a clear vision for the ministry to reproduce organically. A youth program providing skills training and investing deeply in spiritual development and leadership shows this. By regularly assessing these 6 areas, aiming for a higher score, we significantly increase the likelihood our mission efforts will be truly impactful, sustainable, and create lasting positive change.
So as we bring this insightful deep dive into sustainable mission to a close, what is the core principle or idea that you hope our listeners will carry with them? What's the main takeaway?
The fundamental principle I hope resonates is the absolute necessity for a significant paradigm shift in our approach. It's about intentionally moving away from that outdated model of paternalism
Right.
and wholeheartedly embracing local ownership and genuine empowerment in every aspect. Think of it not as simply giving resources, but as strategically equipping individuals and communities, mirroring Jesus' own approach of planting seeds.
Yeah, back to the seat.
Exactly. Planting seeds of potential and trusting their capacity to grow. This involves deep commitment to actively cultivating local leadership, like Pastor Samuel's story, fostering true self-sufficiency, and ultimately embodying the gospel's transformative power in a way that resonates and spreads organically. The vision is a global church, valuing local wisdom and capacity, planting hope in fertile soil, nurturing partnerships that honor local cultures, leading to a self-sustaining faith that transforms the world from within.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us into the crucial principles of sustainable mission. We've explored the vital importance of shifting the focus from dependency to empowerment, diligently cultivating strong local leadership, fostering genuine and lasting self-sufficiency, and prioritizing true partnership in all of our mission endeavors.
And as you continue to reflect on these important ideas, we leave you with this thought-provoking question, inspired by the insightful openers in our source material. Consider this. What if the truest measure of success in mission isn't ultimately about how much we give, but rather about how effectively we empower others to give of themselves, their talents, their resources, their leadership for the flourishing of their own communities?
We really encourage you to take some time to reflect on the concepts we've discussed today and to consider how you might apply these principles in your own work, your own understanding of mission, and perhaps even revisit the source material for a deeper personal reflection.
Absolutely.
Our sincere hope is that this deep dive has equipped you to think more critically and to contribute to a future of mission engagement that is truly impactful, deeply respectful, and ultimately enduring.